Uh-oh, can't hear, no sound.
Down in the sound.
Connected to patterns in local law. One of the challenges that we realize, there's not enough consent decrees happening around the country. And most of the names people don't know. And so I think we have to go to the DOJ and force and say to them, listen, we got thousands of names. And we believe these names are connected to patterns in local law enforcement that's going unchecked. And we know more individuals are going to die because of it. Because the consent decrees, again, like that happened after Rodney King. And different administrations, the Trump administration came in and they ended them. So we really need something in place that takes the consent decrees to the next level. The community of individuals and families who hold these names near and dear have to go to the DOJ and make this a priority. And I think it also gives us the ability to begin to think and organize together. Because people have to realize the gravity of what we're dealing with. We're dealing with folks being lynched in 2023. And not only are we dealing with folks being lynched, we're dealing with Black folks being lynched predominantly with no accountability, no recourse, nothing, left to deal with that trauma, right? Yeah. But we need to talk about what the next level of pressure and accountability looks like, because I think we have to go beyond consent decrees as well.
Good evening. My name is Roxane Johnson. My son's name is Jamal Bird. He was killed by DC Metropolitan Police, October 1st, 2019. I'm here with my wonderful co-host, LaToya. Good evening, LaToya. How you doing?
Hey, good evening, you guys. My name is LaToya Benton. I am the mother of the wonderful Xavier Hill. Xavier was killed by 2 Virginia State Troopers at the age of 18, January 9, 2021. I am honored tonight to be joined by 2 other wonderful ladies. I'll let them give the intro of themselves. Tawanda, do you want to go ahead and go first? Tell us who you are, please.
Yes, thank you, Queen. So my name is Tawanda Jones. I am the sister of Tyrone West. My brother Tyrone West was brutally executed in Baltimore City by 17 killer cops on July the 18th, 2013.
Thank you, Tawanda. Thank you, Tawanda. Marissa?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me, ladies. Happy to be here with you 3 ladies. My name is Marissa Barrera. I'm from California. My brother is Michael Barrera. He was killed by 5 Woodland Police officers. He was murdered in 2017, and I've just been in this fight ever since. Thank you.
We're pleased to have you both this evening. Not the circumstances that bring us together, right? We're part of a group that nobody wants to be a part of. But could you tell us a little bit more, Tawanda, about what happened with your brother?
Yes, thank you. So unfortunately, my brother was an unarmed man and he was driving while Black in a murder car. And the reason why I say that, because men, women, children can get murdered by law enforcement officers and nothing is done, no one's held accountable. But he literally borrowed my vehicle to go and pick a young lady up that he barely knew, that she was stranded, she needed a ride. And I wanted him to go and pick up my daughter afterwards. And unfortunately, he was murdered 30 minutes after he left me. And it's just sad, tortured, beat to death in broad daylight by 17 armed men and women. You know, it's really sad and disgusting. And for 10 long years, 530 weeks, my family, my coalition, we've been fighting for accountability nonstop. It's just sad. And then the fact that the medical examiner's office played a major role by literally covering up the murder of my brother with Dr. Fowler's signature on it makes it even worse. It's just
from your experience, and you all have developed, I want to say it's West Wednesdays, right?
Yes.
And you said you've been gone, how many weeks has it been again?
Out 530 weeks.
Okay, and that's West Wednesday that we have, and that's the podcast you guys have. So it's kind of to reiterate, y'all, I want to just drive the point back as far as the town hall what happened today. If you didn't read the title, we're talking about different podcasts that are out here. If you noticed from the introduction, Marissa is in California, Tawanda is in Maryland, and we are in the DMV area as well. So it's a coast to coast thing. The whole point of having this podcast is to discuss not only our cases, but to also discuss the avenues that families can have in order to get their stories heard out there. Marissa, can you also tell us what happened to your brother and what when the case happened?
Yeah, so Michael was targeted by the cops who killed him. It had been happening just the weeks leading up. He had an interaction with the fifth officer who finished killing him, and essentially he suffocated him, cutting off his oxygen supply. He was at his house when it happened. There's still a lot of stuff that is not too clear that we'll probably never know, but we do know that he was at his house when it started and it led to a foot chase. Michael was already telling us about threats and prior interactions from some of the officers involved, threatening his life. So when it happened, you know, it was really crazy. They ended up also beating my brother on the street. 5 of them. They also excessively tased him. And just recently, I came across, because as families, we've had to do a lot of this work ourselves when it comes to the investigation, the awareness, trying to get justice. Recently came across some of the audio that I hadn't personally listened to yet because there was a lot of hours. So this audio was after my brother was killed and, you know, things were finishing up. And you hear the officers laughing about it. They're laughing about killing my brother. And one of them says, you know, he dropped to the ground. And I was like, should I stop beating the fuck out of him? So I always knew that my brother was beaten and that what they did was really wrong. His last words were, I can't breathe. And he cried out for help and begged for his life when they were killing him to breathe, to stop. Why are they trying to kill him? And yeah, the officers were also calling him by name. So they already knew who my brother was. And we're currently in the, you know, the officers got cleared, but we are hoping to reach our trial, our federal trial soon. I feel like every time I talk about my brother, I'm saying this, but it keeps getting pushed back. So hopefully in this next year we can make it.
And Marissa, what you guys have, is it Voices of Strength? That's the podcast. Is that, am I right?
Yeah, so Voice of Strength, it's a nonprofit organization. And when we first started in 2020, that's what we kicked off with, is a series of interviews with impacted families. So we've had a lot of families, different states and different experiences join and share their stories with us on there.
So how have you found doing the podcast has impacted or helped with impacted families?
Yeah. Sorry, I guess I'll go since I
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So my idea with starting it, because at that time there was one other one where I knew of where I had actually been a guest with them, and it was, you know, nice I've done a lot of interviews. So it was nice for me. This podcast was done by a man, and then he would have impacted families join as hosts and have different impacted families come on. That's kind of how he did it. And I thought that experience was so much better sorry if you guys hear my kid in the background.
Okay.
But my experience was so much better where I was speaking to an impacted family about my experience, and they're actually believing me. They're hearing me. They're not looking at me like I'm some cop hating, lying person with a crazy story. They actually are feeling me. And if a lot of us have done interviews, you know, some of those end with feeling off, like it wasn't a good experience or whatnot. But I really felt it was important to I know a lot of families in different states, and I know I'm in California where there are a lot of families. I've been fortunate to meet with families. I can call families and meet with them here in Sacramento, and some families don't have that. And I've met a lot of moms who are isolated in their areas, maybe no community support, but they hadn't gotten to share their loved one's story, their children's story. Often it was their children. So I thought this was a great way for some of the stories that don't have a lot of attention, or people maybe don't even know about, to share their stories, the forgotten ones, the ones that don't get that love and support. And then also all of us sharing our testimonies, the truth of what our families experienced. I felt like having a library of all our different stories, because essentially when you listen to them, they're all like have the same get down and similar stuff, no matter if it was 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And it's just, I'm getting the chills right now because it's so creepy, and it just shows these are not coincidences. They're not accidents. The cover-ups are done maliciously. I thought that was important. And then also, I have had a lot of families that just were like, thank you. This was the first time I ever spoke about my son. This is the first time I shared my story. And it does help. It is hard to keep listening to the story. Yeah, we feel it. We feel it every time. I cry for your guys' loved ones, just like, for mine, when I hear new stories, when I hear people's, you hear those details, it's just really crazy and it's wrong. So just
like
really
you
to
said,
uplift.
even when it comes to somebody understanding you, Tawanda, when Xavier first got killed, I was on Tawanda's show. And as far as it being like a safe space, what I'm saying, I knew that she understood. I'm still angry, right? But just knowing that I could speak to her and just be able to, I don't even remember probably Tawanda what I even said on your show. I just know I was there, right? And I know that I needed to have that outlet to be able to speak to somebody about Xavier's case, because when the media is gone, it's like, nah, I want to still talk about my son. I want people to still understand what happened to my child. So again, Tawanda, how long have you said you guys are going for? I know since your brother had gotten killed. How do you find it? I also seen you have been y'all do some live stuff too. I've seen you out in the streets of Baltimore, out there in the streets for real.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about. So when my brother was murdered back in 2013, literally, we took to the streets. Like, we were shutting down town hall meetings, but it was more so I had to vent, like you said. Like, I went through a season where when my brother was first murdered, for the first, I want to say, almost 30 days, I could not speak. And I had one of my uncles to represent my brother. And doing all that, like, I was just like, I felt like a zombie, like I was just dead, like I was gone, like with my brother. Like, when they murdered him, they murdered me, but I still wanted to do something. And that's why we started West Wednesday. And we were literally boots on the ground, out in the streets every week. I don't care if it was raining. Like, it was to the point, sis, that even when I would call out for work because it would be so treacherous, like with ice storms, dangerous, I literally would show up to West Wednesday on them corners, freezing cold, treacherous weather. And I used to have people in the beginning like, well, won't you postpone it? And I'm like, they didn't postpone murdering my brother. When they come and kill our loved ones, they don't think about the time, date, or any of that. So I don't care if I got to be out there by myself. I'm going to be out there whether people join me or not. And that was my mentality and how I started. And then from that point, I started speaking out after I was able to, like, because I'm like, can't nobody tell my brother's story like I can, because I was with him. Me and him, like, this was my everything. He was like a father figure to me. He helped raise me. I was with him. He was my church buddy, everything. So literally when we started that platform, and I've noticed that when the media first was early on the stage, I noticed how they try to isolate families. They try to make it seem like these are isolated incidents when it's systemically happening worldwide. And I'm like, oh no, before you talk to my family, I want you to interview Anthony Anderson family, who was murdered and slaughtered a whole year before my brother came to be murdered, and that's how I started, and that's how it's always been, because and that's like the sister said, and me even hearing her talk about how her brother was murdered, I hear those eerie things that happened to her brother happened to my brother 10 years ago. Like he was screaming, he couldn't breathe. He was pepper sprayed, tased, and tortured. And then they let an officer from Morgan State University, David Keller Lewis, sat on my brother's back while he was in a hog tie position, handcuffed. Witnesses said my brother was gasping like a fish out of breath, and this maniac sat on my brother's back until he was dead, gray, dead, on the scene of Kentmore Causeway. And it's just sad, like how they'll lie and say, oh, well, your loved one died at the hospital. No, he was dead. That's why the ambulance pulled up at the scene. They stayed out there for a good 35 minutes and to take him to a hospital that's 2 minutes away, 2 minutes away. And that's not even speeding. Like, so if they would have got him there, they could have got him to the hospital literally in a minute. Good Sam Hospital, literally 2 minutes away driving. And it took them 30 minutes to actually pull off. So we knew that he was there. But the whole point and the question that you asked me, I knew early on that this was something needed. It happened way before my brother even was murdered. People were getting murdered out in the streets, but to actually make that connection and let them know that this is bigger than just a raindrop. This is a rainstorm that we are tolerating every day for no reason. And they try to, like I said, downplay it. And it's just like the same game, but different names. They just kill our loved ones. They get away with it. They laugh, they joke about it, and it's business as usual. And in my case, I'm like, it's never going to be business as usual. We just got finished shutting down a town hall meeting with the potential so-called selected commissioner, upcoming commissioner Worley, that they just want to elect for no reason. When he was there when my brother got murdered, and plenty of people, and he was covering up. He's a part of the reason why, people are getting murdered and covering up, and they want to put this man in, place as our top cop. Like, that's ridiculous. So yeah.
Well, let me ask y'all a question. Let's talk about this, because while we're talking about podcasts, and we both just said, as you said, you started a podcast, you said it, and Marissa said it as well. You started a podcast because it was needed. I'm quite sure you both know that when we had COVID, they had stuff like, what was it? I can't think of that app. It was called some app they had out here. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it was more so functional, like doing rooms they had for discussions, right? Y'all host podcasts every week, same we do too, right? And I know you see the viewers fluctuate depending on the topic, right? Now, would you agree? We're talking about sex, and we're talking about men cheating on their wives and stuff of that nature. But people be more in tune to participate as far as the podcast is concerned. Or what is it that people shun away from talking about the important issues? And they talk about, I guess you could say, the trash itself. How do you feel about that?
Is that question for me or for one?
Either one of y'all, both of y'all.
Okay. I'll just go ahead because I'm talking now, but it's always been bothersome to me because, and even down to like, whereas though when we go out to these meetings that are needed for community to organize and galvanize together, because these issues affect us all. But it's just sad, like they frown up upon us, but you'll get somebody to have a podcast, and it's no shade or hate on my sister. She's doing her thing, and she has a podcast about data mall, and she have like 50 to 60 to 80 people on a show, thumbs up. But at the end of the day, like
what is it called? Data mall.
It's called data mall. It's an app. It's a it's a
Lord.
show about dating. It's about dating and like dating. It's just about dating. But she does an amazing job with it. But my whole point is, when I look at her podcast, I'll see 80 to 100 people on easily, like no problem. But like West Wednesday, when we turned it on, we might see a good 10 or 15. Then after a while, it dropped down. It's just like sad. It's just like sad. And I really feel like maybe it might be too traumatizing for people, or maybe they don't get it, because I remember before my loved one was murdered, this is like it's hard to put into words, but when you're not affected a certain kind of way, like recently, just not to skip the gun, but recently with my nephew, he became missing in Atlanta, and we went through that. But when he became missing, it really opened up that whole world about missing people and how people feel and oh my God, you can only imagine. But when you go through something like that, the pain hits you totally different. So I really feel like until it hit them, the way it hit us is like, okay, I
But okay, but
support you.
would you not say though, because of the climate though, because of the climate that we're currently in right now, right? They tell us we should be proactive versus being retroactive. Now, my son he'll protest. Xavier wasn't going to protest prior to him getting killed. It wasn't with me, it was Xavier wasn't going to protest. So again, I to a certain degree I understand as far as they're not affected right now, but you would think because people see out here how bad the climate is and how the police keep killing us, that they will start paying attention more to like what's going on around them. Marissa, do you have that same issue, or how do you feel about that?
Sorry, I didn't quite actually catch the first question, but I think I kind of caught on. I think, I don't know. It's weird because we see over time, when there's a high profile killing, when the whole country's going crazy about it and angry and wanting to go out there and fight. We see it, but we just see it every year. Like right now, there's probably about time for another one of those to start coming soon. And I just don't really know. I don't really know how to place myself on it. I know part of what Tawanda said about some people, or one of you ladies said, sorry, just not affected, but also it's too traumatizing for some people. Some people, it's better out of sight, out of mind. It goes back to them not being impacted. But I don't know, it's kind of hard to say because then, when a high profile killing happens, they have all
They
these
get
people.
involved. Right.
Yeah, and I know a lot of us families that, especially if we haven't got our loved one didn't get national or even that much support in their own community. It's hard when we see that happen, and then I know I've had loved ones or family members and people in my own community shouting for people who were killed across the country, but they don't give a shit about it. Even if I call an action around that time, they still aren't going to show up. Because in the beginning, when my brother was first killed and I saw these happening, I'm thinking, okay, next action, maybe more people will support because they're becoming aware. But it doesn't even work like that. It's like the same people
It actually gets
chanting
worse.
that.
And actually, the crazy part about it is that what I learned is that at the beginning, it's like all these people are here, and as the more you have to keep fighting for the case, whatnot, it's like, hello, anybody gonna show up? And it's kind of like they're fully aware of what's going on with the cases. So it's like, how do we, through using the podcast? I know we're using. I know our podcast is more so about, we say about action. When it comes to calling DAs, I'm saying you guys about the same thing. But as far as like calling the call of action, making the call of awareness and whatnot. So when people see these things, like how do you begin? So you said you feel the tension about to happen again, right? But how do we keep it from just happening again and not staying consistently on the act?
Can I interject one thing, LaToya?
Yeah.
We have been, and I know I sound like a scratch record, but we have conditioned in so many different ways. Sister talking about people, more eyeballs on a podcast that's about date them all. Well, that's entertainment. And so we have been conditioned to be more geared to go for something that's going to entertain us, tickle our ears, make us laugh. We're going to laugh ourselves right onto, wherever. And so when it comes to something that's informing or educating us, that doesn't take precedence.
Right.
And that's something that we as each individual is responsible for. Yeah. Nobody can come to you, knock on your door and tell you that you need to educate yourself about who you vote for. You need to educate about who's making the laws in your town, in your county, in your state. Nobody's going to tell you that, because why? Because they want to keep the power to themselves.
Yeah.
So maybe, just maybe, I'm not saying don't entertain yourself. By all means, laugh and have fun, but entertain and educate yourself. You can do both. You can do both. And this is a epidemic. We talk about high profile cases, all these cases. How many we got? We got a ticker on our website. 700 people have been killed by the police
this year.
23. We're not even through the whole year. That's an epidemic. I just wanted to interject those two things.
No, you're exactly right. Because it's kind of like if we're having an epidemic right now, people are just not paying attention.
I'm paying attention.
They're not paying attention. You have the resources out here to utilize. If you have different podcasts, it's more so what you just said too, is what you're paying attention to, what you're being entertained by.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Can I say something real quick? I definitely agree with you, my queens. Both of y'all make excellent points. But I think the television, and I call it the tell-lie vision, it plays a whole lot into everything that they feed us. And that's what, you know, the media, like, they're the puppets. They don't put out like our story. They make us look like we're the bad guys, like we're bashing police, or like we're stone cold crazy, because the stuff that they do to us, it's unbelievable. Like, until you walk these shoes, you're never going to believe that they ran an officer out my city by putting dead rats on his car. Nobody's going to believe that until they actually see it. Nobody believed me when I told them somebody broke in my brother's house literally after they murdered him, and it looked like a house raid. And come to find out, the leading one, the first one that had so many complaints on him, almost murdered somebody 24 hours before my brother, was a part of the gun trace task force. And that's what they were doing. They were robbing people, killing them, setting them up, putting guns. But it's like, it's more so with this television, it's easier to just be entertained than to actually, it's almost like we're frogs in a pot. You know, we know the saying, if you put frogs in a pot and the water's hot, they're going to hop out. But if you let them just adjust to it, we just adjusting to dying and getting murdered and being entertained. And they always have been using Black, African American, people of color for decades for entertainment. Even when we were getting demolished as slaves and being hung from trees, they were using that as entertainment and coming out with stuff like Aunt Your Mom and all this foolishness to degrade us. But yet we still go and buy the product. We still go and support it. You know, it's just sad. And I just feel like what we're doing right now is like connecting the dots and us coming together and just bringing that awareness is a real big part of the puzzle that needs to happen.
I love what you just said about we're just how the culture more so they're adjusting to it, right? Because that's what it is. It's a matter of people getting too comfortable. They getting comfortable. It's like the matter that it's happening. They're like, oh, another killing. Oh, another hashtag. It's like, nah, you should be tired of saying another killing. You should be tired of putting another hashtag up. At what point in time when? And we should be tired of saying how many more names. We should be tired of saying that because we keep saying the same thing.
But that's where the TV come in there, because they make the stuff seem normal. Like all the stuff that now in Baltimore, I don't know if they doing it in your city, but in Baltimore, their target is our juvenile. So everything, I don't care. We could be at a meeting talking about you know, somebody getting murdered, like somebody grandmother getting shot by the police. The media will Fox 45 Lives will show up and turn that into, oh, well, what did you say about safe streets and the youth doing it? They're gonna make it what they want to make it. You know what I mean? It's just sad and disgusting. But and that's why, like, my brothers here, like, they don't play with the media. They be shutting them down. They be running them away. They be like, no, pack y'all cameras, because y'all not. But at the same time, too, we can't really shut the media down because we still need them to get out our stories. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's an evil world we live in, but we still have to be educated. And that's why I always tell people, be your own conscious consumer, because when the television tell you these lies and have you thinking one thing, always do your own research. If they give you a victim name and they say, oh, well, this person died. Like with me, I wish before my brother was murdered, I was a conscious consumer, because when I heard about Anthony Anderson, the one that wound up being the first one in the streets with us to be interviewed, and I told them to interview his family, I just thought the news said that this man just pretty much swallowed some drugs, and in the neighborhood that he lives in, it was like a drug infested neighborhood, and he was just over there celebrating his grandbaby's birthday party, and that's a part of her memory. His death date is a part of that memory, and it's horrible. But I said all that to say, I just was thinking when the television told me that lie, I'm like, oh my God, that poor man cried, you know, and I still felt bad for him. Still, I'm like, dang, you know, he swallowed some drugs and died. And that wasn't even the case. And the crazy part, they turned around and they murdered my brother, and they tried to say the same exact thing. My brother might have died from swallowing drugs. My brother might have died from the heat. All this foolishness, lies. The television, lies.
I think a lot of times because we don't do our own investigation.
Exactly.
We believe the television and we just sit here and go along with what they're saying.
Yeah.
We don't follow up with cases. Once it's
Nope.
out the news, we don't
That's it.
ourselves become a consumer of it and say, let me go on and follow up and look this up, see
Mhm.
what happened in court. And that's when they keep getting away with murders over and over again.
Mhm.
And though
And
they
even with-
feed us, and though they feed us lies, my sister, we responsible for what we digest, right?
Hello?
Amen. That's the
For
truth.
real. Keep digesting lies and keep eating that junk food that the cable TV news want to feed you, and you're gonna find out that you're not gonna have a clear conscience about anything. You're not gonna be able to think on your own. Don't have the ability to do what we call critical thinking, to think
Right.
what somebody's trying to tell you and be able to reason for yourself.
Amen. That's true.
Because it's not a
Amen.
coincidence that we all have podcasts, right? And we all feature impacted families. I'm quite sure you all have all heard the narrative of families saying he was afraid for his life, right?
Mhm.
And I don't care what city we're in, what state we're in, we do this from across the state, from different areas. And we all hear the same narrative. We can't keep believing the same narrative over and over and over again. At some point in time, the light bulb gotta go off and say, okay, hey, we gotta start doing our own investigation. We just sit here and believe that stuff. We can't keep believing that stuff.
Absolutely.
That's the truth. And it's just like my sister just said, we are responsible for what we take in. And so instead of us watching the television, open up a book, do research. I started after I figured out they were like playing with my mind and all these lies. I started reading more books and just coming away from that foolishness. And I started learning about the Casual Killing Act. No one knew about that.
Stop.
Yeah, that was like happened with the Casual Killing Act, if anybody don't know. And it's the same thing that they're doing in 2023, but it was
Same
when
thing.
back in the 60s, the 1960s, when they had slave catchers. And the first thing they said in this Casual Killing Act, if a person resists, if the slave resists, they had the right to kill them. And that's the same thing that they're doing now. You resist
Same as
life.
follow immunity. That's the same exact thing. If you look that up,
Same
Tawanda,
thing.
the
Mhm.
language is the
Yeah.
same damn thing. It's
Same
the
damn
same
thing.
thing.
Same thing.
But I
Amen.
think the crazy part about it is that people think when you talk like that, they're like, oh, you running you just talking out your ass, right?
Mhm.
No, really look that
Mhm.
up. And it's
Look
gonna
it
really
up.
say that.
Look it up. And then the crazy part says they tried to with the squeegee kid stuff. They've been doing this since the 1960s. I'm like, are you serious? Like, I was looking at stuff whereas though I'm like, oh my God. Like, and then they was discriminating against people, and then like the politicians was coming on saying obese people couldn't work because they were too big and it would take them too long to get to work. And I'm looking like, you gotta be kidding me. And then you had your activists out there saying, we want justice, no peace. And I'm like, this is the same stuff we're doing now in 2023. Same exact thing.
So the question becomes, Marissa, how do we use these podcasts? And as you notice, we're not talking about being competitive or anything. We're talking about building coalitions, collaborating, where we can work together, because the more of us that do the thing together, the more power we have. How do we use our podcast effectively to start to see the change that we want, the accountability that we deserve?
Yeah, so I'll just start with, it goes for me, just to throw it out there first, it's still difficult for me because sometimes, we can't even get our own family, our friends to show up for us. We can't get people to do supportive things like share our posts even. So it's hard to make people do things. And even so, what I found that is helpful though, that what has helped me with this podcast, and kind of we're about to go into a new season pretty soon, and I'm switching it up a little bit. But what's helped me have more people in our circle and people knowing our stories are not just families who had a loved one killed by police. We also have begun by sharing these stories and sharing the details to our experiences. We're meeting other folks who've been wronged in other ways. We're talking to families who have loved ones who are wrongfully incarcerated. We have loved ones who have been almost killed by the police. We have people who have been targeted for different reasons. And these people have been like some of my greatest supporters. Some of these people I've met, they didn't lose a loved one to the police, but they're they've been wronged by the government, by police, whatever it is, their story is. So I found that they are a strong ally. If we need support, they're the ones who pop up besides families. I think one of the things that we are switching up with going into this next season is we aren't only just doing the interviews by families anymore, because I did that for almost 2 years. I had 2 babies in between. There was a lot, but for a while I was doing them every week, and it's a lot. And honest, it's so sad that we could go on forever. We have one family a week, we could go on forever, and that's really, it's a lot. So I started to, just kind of see what I think could be effective to help people and to give a little more back from what I've learned and what other people working with us have learned, other families. So some of our podcasts will not just be an interview. It'll be like, what are the steps if you need to sue the police? There's people looking to sue the police. Well, you know what? I've done it. I know how to do this. I've done it for my family. And we're not lawyers. We can't give certain advice, but we can share our experiences. I meet families who they'll sometimes be like, well, you're lucky that you have a lawsuit. No, I don't think I'm lucky, but because I know how many lawyers I called, how many no's I got told. And I know how, if I didn't really dive in and attack these people, then we wouldn't have a lawyer. My brother's truth wouldn't be coming out. So I don't know if that effectively answered it, but I feel like providing the knowledge, us sharing our knowledge, and even hearing your story about your brother, like I get the chills because things you've shared that I didn't share yet, it's our case too, and it's just crazy. So that's the best I could think right now. And I know also showing support back to these other people, including them. And because there's a long time where I'm like impacted families killed by police, but now I'm starting to broaden my network and who I care about, what other people I share support. And I know that's a lot. It's a lot because we already got so many impacted families. I'm already at capacity with what I do, but I know it's important because it's not just us that are being wronged. There's so many of us. That's my answer. I don't know if I answered it directly.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. And the thing is using all the tools in the toolbox, right?
Yes, every last tool.
Every last tool. And sometimes we
Mhm.
gotta invent some tools.
Right, you gotta make some up.
If they don't exist, we gotta make them. Yeah,
Exactly.
we have to, because we're the ones we're waiting for. There's
Yep.
no cavalry gonna come and rescue us and say, oh, poor sister, poor mother, we're so sad.
Yeah.
No, that's not gonna happen. So what we say, Tawanda, is we want to build a system to fight.
Yeah.
We want to build a system to fight the system.
Amen. And I love that, my queen. And another thing, like one of our tools is using their tools. Like, so when they like in our case, for instance, with I won't even call this man no commissioner, with Mr. Worley himself. What we're doing is you have to, unfortunately, we live in a world where you if you can't show it or prove it, then it don't count. So what we need to do is like our tools in our tool bag, we should have all those videos from back then where they were targeting like the squeegee kids. If that's a conversation we want to talk about, say, hey, we're not reinventing the wheel. It's been going on, and start it off and show them that. Show them, all the mistreatment and the same things that we're doing now that they was doing decades ago, and just kind of make that connection right there. And then in the case with Mr. Worley, we are just showing them, like, because he actually in one breath, he's telling me he's been to the scene where my brother was murdered. And I asked some questions. You got to be real strategic in the way you question them. Sometimes it ain't best to run your mouth. It's best sometimes just to listen, take in things, speak, whatever. But I didn't say anything. As much as I wanted to go in, I'm like, let me just leave him with a question and see what he said at each meeting, because they only give you 2 minutes to tell your whole life. But the whole point of what I'm trying to say, I asked him a very important question. Well, in my documentation, it said that you were at the scene when my brother was murdered. were you there? That was one of them. Oh yeah, I was there. And I said, I want to know, how was that scene? And he was like, oh my God, like he choked up, his face was red. He was like, that scene, I can't remember if I was there minutes after your brother was murdered or hours later, but I was there. And that scene was just awful. And then in the next breath, at another town hall meeting, you want to say, you never saw a bad cop, because good cop, because you such a good cop. You nominated yourself as the good cop, and nobody, because you're a good cop, nobody does bad things in front of you. Like, you just went to a scene where my brother was slaughtered, murdered by 17 men and women, beat to death, laying there dead, and you never saw a bad cop. Like, so you got to prove to people, you got to show them what you see. Like, and with my thing, I sat back when my brother was murdered. They didn't take no pictures of my brother's autopsy or report. Like, he had no pictures. Who does an autopsy and you have no photos? But early in it, I was in the winning. This has all been nothing about but my brother. So what I did was, when they hit his body for 5 days, when I told the lady, I convinced the people at the funeral home, please let me go in there and say a prayer with my loved one. Please let me have privacy. We were deprived this. My brother was murdered 5 days ago. We're just saying, we're like, okay, put some gloves on. We ain't clean his body. You can only take 2 family members. I'm like, I ain't taking my aunt. She passing out like me. I'm going to take the 2 strongest men in my family. And I picked my biggest uncles ever. And it was a motive for that. And I went in there and we took our own damn pictures. I had to turn my back because I couldn't see, but we took our own damn pictures, and they slaughtered my brother. So I got this thing. You got this, what you can prove nowadays. It's always, and then I learned it ain't even about what's wrong or right. It's who can prove what. And it's sad, because you got to think about it. We get, like, the same way we get an attorney to, represent our family, our slaughtered loved one. The killers get an attorney too.
Yep.
They get an attorney too.
And
I think part of that has to be when it comes to educating ourselves too, right? That's the portion about education. We can't, I know for myself, you think about what you learned in high school, what you learned in grade school when it comes to like law enforcement and stuff like that. That does not apply to what's going on now. You might have learned about certain killers and here and there, like you said, the high profile ones, but as far as like the actual how they treat us for real, that does not apply like towards now. So again, that's upon us to educate ourselves to when it comes to like quote unquote proving it, because you can still quote unquote prove it and then still get off. How many times have you seen up here? They'll have it on camera, they'll have it on tape, and if they'll get house arrest like that, they'll get something where the crowd does not fit the time. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, even with proving it, I think we gotta still go take it back a little farther than that when it comes to these laws that's put in place. Because the laws that's put in place are still gonna affect us in the end game.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Even to the point that the prosecutors that serve us, because we're the ones who pay their salaries and we're the ones that vote them in and out for the most part. They collude with the police officers. So even if you could maybe get an indictment, the fact that they're so intertwined with these law enforcement people it doesn't help us to get to a place where we're now getting accountability. So they'll just say, oh no, we chose not to indict them. Even like you said, they got all the information, somebody stood there traumatized, watched the whole thing and taped it, and they still say, oh yeah, we chose not to. That's a problem. That's
what I'm going through right now. Prime example, the first killer, Ruiz, who murdered my brother, he's married to a state prosecutor. He's married to Michelle Battle. Like, I was gonna go crash their wedding and everything. I was gonna go crash it. They must have got wind that I was coming, and they switched and moved their whole wedding venue to a whole nother spot, because I was going up in there. I'm telling you, I was going up in there.
But even still, Tawanda, as you say that, it's kind of like, we already know there's a conflict of interest, right? Like, period. Mm-hmm. And that's like this common sense. It's like, why are those things even allowed? That's all my understanding. Right. How is that allowed? And it just keep happening.
Because there's no place in the courtroom for a Black or brown person, man. I'm trying to tell you, these laws, they don't even look at us as human beings, so we can start right there. Let's start right there to the Constitution. They don't even look at us as human beings. We prove them, and that's ridiculous. Like, that's what it all embodies in. All false out there.
However, we are citizens of this country, and when you
Yeah.
say the Constitution, we need to know what the Constitution says that we have rights to as citizens. See, another place where we need to educate ourselves. So
Yeah.
you don't see me as a human being. However, the Constitution that you like to hold up and parade around when it benefits you is the same Constitution that says that each one of us are citizens, and because
Mhm.
we're citizens, we have the right to address things like this in the civil court or criminal court, right? And so when we know that, then we don't back down when it comes to, oh, well, we chose not to indict. Well, okay, who else I need to talk to? Because apparently you're not gonna help me. But a lot of times we don't do those things because we don't know our rights. We
Yeah.
don't.
I'm glad she said that.
Go ahead, Tawanda, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm glad she said that because we had one of my beautiful sister queens, the mother of Darnell. I mean, I'm not Darnell, I'm so sorry, so many victims. I apologize, but her son name was Donald, and pretty much Marcella's Marcel, I can't, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But anyway, his mother did something very unprecedented. She was the first one to access the grand jury on her own. And that's why, Sister Queen, when I see you doing certain things that they say, oh, you can't get, and you like, oh no, I'm doing this for my son. And I salute you because you know certain things that you can do. So that's very true. That's very true.
Because it comes back to educating ourselves. I think, even when I think back to when Zay got killed, right? And I remember me asking the district attorney about me seeing the videotape. And this dude kept telling me I had to have a lawyer to see the videotape. And then I thought about it now. I'm like, well, hold on. If I filed the case myself without a lawyer, how the hell are you going to think I need to have a lawyer? When in all actuality, when I did not need to have a lawyer. But because I was uneducated at the time, I believed that shit. You know, and I believe that I had to get a lawyer, but no, it's my right as a citizen to move the same way the lawyer moved and whatnot, because that's my right, period. You know, so I think a lot of times I hear people say, I haven't seen the tape yet. Why not? Because my lawyer said so. Well, that's not how it's gonna work. You know, I think we have to do a better job as far as educating ourselves. I think through these podcasts. I think you ladies, each time I watch your podcast, I hear or watch and read the episodes and whatnot, because I think I always learn about a new person, which is really sad. You've been going for a long time, but I think it's sad because we do have a new episode each week. That's sad because that lets us know there's another victim that's out there for next week, right? And it's kind of like it's a podcast that you want to have that you shouldn't have to have. So it's a way of us using the media in our sense, social media, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on Instagram or YouTube, to get the victim's name out there. Marissa, what would you say you would want to tell the audience as far as when it comes to Voices of Strength? How often are you airing? And what would you say when it comes to like call to action that you find? And where can we find information about your podcast at?
So we're currently not airing right now. I do want to say one thing. The thing about Voices of Strength, which the education, just overall, and I see it with your podcast as well. Even though I haven't aired in at least a year, and I still am getting lots of hours watched every month. I still get updates about we're getting watched, and I still get contacted by families who are like, wow, the same thing happened to me. So like Tawanda said earlier, the awareness and that we're all in this place together, connecting the dots and bouncing stuff off of each other, that helps so much. And information that I've shared from my own personal experience with my brother's case has helped newer families. And I know that. So I think what we're all doing is very important. So thank you, ladies, too. And I'm sorry, I kind of got caught up without answering the question, but we plan on starting later this year. So probably it's in December. I feel like this year is just really coming back by. We're going to have at least 2 episodes. I'm not committing to the 1 a week because you know how much that is. So we're doing 2 a week, but again, sticking to interviews, but also we're doing educational talks and things like that.
Wait, you said 2 a week? You said you're doing 1 a week.
Mean,
then you just say you're doing 2 a week. I'm like, well, hold on. Now you went backwards.
2 a month. I'm like,
Okay.
I can't. No, yeah, 2 a month because I have been doing all that every aspect of it. So I'm like just trying to be realistic, getting back into it. But I am excited. I felt like after so many weeks and weeks and weeks, it did drain me. It got me very tired. I felt really, I had to take a little breather. So now I'm kind of getting back into, I'm ready to get back on, bring a little different aspect to it and to the families, because this whole thing is, we're self-educated with this. We're learning, reading, researching, learning about cases. So I feel like I'm better able to handle that right now, that next step with with it. So all of our stuff can be found on voicesstrength.info. We have our episodes on Facebook have more comments, and that's helpful to people that are watching, because some of them have a lot of comments with other families also sharing. A lot of people have connected there, but we're also on YouTube. And the other thing thank you. Yeah, so those are all the episodes we've done. It's at 40, I believe now. And there's a lot there. A lot of families came on and shared. So we also are on Instagram too. We're on Facebook too, but I swear we're shadow banned. We're not barely getting any views. But on Instagram, we really just try to share our perspective. So it's mine or other people, what they're sharing, things like the narrative. Like I've made educational posts like about what a false narrative is, and like even to tell our people, because sometimes people, when they're talking about a story, they'll repeat the narrative of the police because that's what everybody knows it as. I try to encourage people, don't ever repeat that. Don't ever repeat that narrative, because what we know to be fact is that the cops killed that person, but everything else is just hearsay, and we know how they move. So things like that, just trying to give like a different angle of all of this. And that's it. Thank you.
What about your podcast, Tawanda? And it's West.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's West Winds, and you can find us on the Justice for Tyrone West. So you can hashtag, we're on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, all that. So just all you gotta do is hit the hashtag West Wednesday sign, and you'll be able to see us. And unfortunately, I can't stop. Like I can't give it a break. I can't stop. Like I'm on vacation. I started my vacation today, and as you can see, I'm here and doing what I gotta do, and I'll be out tomorrow on the streets in Baltimore City on Green Mountain 33rd at 7:00 p.m. But we'll be posting live online, and even when I go, and I'm going to Long Beach this week, after tomorrow I'll be in Long Beach. And then when I come back next week, I'm going to Atlanta because I have to go get my nephew. So I'll be doing a West Wednesday from Atlanta, Georgia next week.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. And you guys keep in mind too, with all the podcasts, West Wednesdays, Voice of Strength, Life of the Impact. You can find all of us on any podcast platforms. You can also listen to the episodes after you're riding in the car. The whole point of having a podcast, one is to highlight what's going on, but also to educate ourselves too, and on how we can move forward. No one has all the answers. We don't have all, because if we did, we wouldn't still get killed right now. But we can still begin to educate ourselves. We can go and get the answers. It is important to go back and look at some of these cases. Take the time out when you want to have your little free entertainment time. Take the time out and go back and listen to some of these cases, whether it be on Life of the Impact, whether it be Voice of Strength, whether it be on West Wednesdays. And the good thing about it, I know for a fact, we don't all air on the same day. And then, like I said to you again, you can also watch this on your own time. So there's no reason why you can't get involved in for change. Let's make it our culture now to be proactive than it is retroactive, right? Y'all get car insurance because somebody gets an accident, was trying to fix your car, right? So right now, look at us as in the same kind of answer for things. Now we don't have all the answers. I'm gonna say it again, but we gotta start being proactive so that we can because they're killing us. They're still killing us. So process that works, yes. But when it comes to educational sides and legislation, what's going on that side, we have to do better as a culture. We gotta do better as a culture. So let's start here by at least learning the stories of how you can do better. This is 3 avenues you got right here, you guys, whether you're sharing the podcast, whether you're listening, or they just learn about the stories, find ways that you two can get involved.
Yes, and it sounds like between the 3 podcasts, we do have enough to start our own channel.
Yeah, I think we should
Right?
start our channel, sis. I
I'm
really
just
think
saying,
so.
sis,
Yeah.
I'm just saying what y'all think. Hey, because
Yes.
between the 3 of us, between the 3 podcasts, we do have a lot of content.
Yes,
do.
a whole lot.
So that's something we can also think about. We did we all trying to get to some place where every family deserves accountability.
Yes.
Justice would have been not killing our loved one,
Come on now. Come on,
but
sis.
accountability, we all deserve it. We all
Mm.
deserve it. And like the sister was saying, you know, they try to make the victim the villain in these
Yeah.
cases. So we got to be smarter. We got to think and listen
We
with
gotta
a
be smarter.
third eye and get educated, please.
Mhm.
Please.
Yeah.
And Roxane, just one more point too. We gotta get smarter when it comes to, don't wait till after the so-called investigation is done to get involved, because that's when all the bullshit happens.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Come
saying?
on
That,
now.
and that's real. When you start reading those documents and stuff, you be like, y'all wrote what? And by this point in
Right.
time, it's too late. So you really
Yeah.
cannot wait to get involved. Like I said, we gotta start being proactive, y'all. When they say somebody got killed by the police or not, be getting involved in documents. They keep saying we can't have an investigation. You just keep pressing the door, keep pressing the door. The door don't open,
Yeah.
go through the window. Find a way to get through, but keep pressing through, y'all, because a lot of that bullshit happens during a so-called investigation. We gotta find a way to change that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we go we got a little bit of time, but is there anything else that you two would like to interject about podcasting and how we can use it to get accountability for our loved ones?
I wanted to say, like, in my case, when like our introduction to West Wednesday is highlight the first killer cop, even though I want all 17 in a cell block, but because Ruiz had got popped up back in the news and he had so many victims, he was the first one on the scene. That's the one that's married to Michelle Battle, on the state's prosecutor. But we always played a video of him, like with real victims that came before my brother and even afterwards. You get what I'm saying? So just showing that kind of stuff and just letting people really see, and then and leaving that burden of weight. What are you going to do about this? Like, this is not for entertainment. Unfortunately, this is not the dating app. We trying to get people held accountable. And
Yeah.
just that type of thing.
Yes, absolutely. What about you, Marissa?
Yeah, I feel a big part of it too is that the fact that we're reaching out to other families. All of us have done that, and it's visible, and we've been doing it, and lifting them up, giving them a space to speak, and kind of teaching them. There's some families where I talk to them right after and we still talk. I just got called from one today about her crazy updates, her federal case. So I was on the call with her earlier. I just feel like us continuing to do this and empowering other individuals is a big piece of this, because I know some of these families, just like, I've never spoken about it. You're the first person who actually asked me about my son out of everyone. So I think that's important. I've always tried to, it's bigger than us. It's bigger than each of us. So the more people we got on our team that's willing to speak out, willing to show up, and building a coalition of families and other impacted people.
Thank you for that. And speaking of which, we talked to Ronald Green's mother last weekend. That was last Tuesday. Well, tomorrow is September the 27th. And one of the asks that she had was that people who are in the Baton Rouge, Louisiana area show up at the Capitol at 12:30, because they're going to have a pre-rally before they have the case, which is in October. So if you're down there, Louisiana, close to Louisiana, driving through Louisiana, Baton Rouge, show up to the state capitol and support this family, because Ronald Green was executed by the police down there, by the state police. We had her
executed the proper road. So,
and we had his mother on last Tuesday. And so we in addition to bringing information, we like to spur people to action. The other thing that's important to remind you of is what? To register and vote. So if you never registered and voted in your life, guess what? You can have a new experience. It's not that hard. You can go online, you can get your form, fill it out. But then what you need to do is educate yourself about the people who are running in your town, in your county, in your state, so that you vote in people who have the like-mindedness to prosecute people for our loved ones when they have been wrongly executed by law enforcement.
When people say, when I'm learning, well, this is what I feel when I'm learning, and people say my vote doesn't count, that's because you have to educate yourself enough on the candidates for your vote to count. If you spend enough time out here and you talk to these, listen to the candidates, you gotta have a one-on-one with them and listen to what they're about, and then your vote would count. So like what Sam said again, don't just register, actually vote.
Yeah,
actually vote, and then follow what these candidates are doing, right? Follow what they're doing. If they're doing the right job, hold them accountable. And then at that point in time, get them out of there. We gotta keep the cycle. We gotta learn how to rethink the system, right? We gotta build a system to fight the system.
That's right. That's right. And nobody's there. We don't have any permanent politicians, but we do have permanent issues.
That's
permanent concerns. And our permanent concerns are killer cops gotta go. And people who need to be held accountable for their behavior must be held accountable for their behavior. Full stop. Full stop. Right. And so we want to remind you of those things. Anything else you want to add, LaToya?
Oh, last but not least, you guys, don't forget as well, please visit us. We have a website at lifeaftertheimpact.org. Find out for resources. Like Roxane said, we do also want a tip from there that tells you how people have been killed so far within the United States from police brutality. We also try to provide resources on just things as far as statute of limitations, our civil rights, because we gotta, like, again, it's about educating ourselves. No, it's not like, a dating app. It's not gonna be, somebody up here twerking like that. This ain't that. But this is about educating ourselves so we can move forward. We as a culture, we have to learn how to do better. I think Tawanda said it earlier that I want to say she said in so many words that we got comfortable. And that's what it is. Y'all want to all chase the bag and get the bag. Once you get the bag in the house and my man, y'all good to go. But once they kill your man, then what you gonna do? That's the thing. We as a culture have gotten to do better. So that's all I want to say. Be sure to visit us at lifeaftertheimpact.org. Donate if you can, because this work is not free. As far as fighting for justice, y'all, it's costly as far as getting lawyers and things of that nature is concerned. This is with any podcast, with our podcast, any organization that is fighting for justice. Make sure you're supporting the right people. So that's all I gotta say. Tawanda, Marissa, thank you guys so very much for joining us, and I definitely appreciate it.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
I wanted to add in closing, thank you guys so much. And you guys just reminded me, when West Wednesday was started, we actually got the racist Greg Bernstein kicked out of office. We went down, we shut him down. We told people not to vote for him. We went places where they told us, oh, they're not gonna listen to y'all, and they did. And we got that racist piece of trash out of office. So thank you guys.
So that again, so it works. Y'all see that it works. So we're not just saying that stuff just to talk it. If y'all see you got a politician, or I don't heard somebody, I don't heard a politician, I heard a politician, I don't heard different words for it or not, right? But if you have people in office, there are ways for people who are not doing their job, get them out of offices. Like again, utilizing all the tools in the toolbox. We talked about a PAC before as well. You got to utilize all those things to keep moving forward for change.
Yes. So thank you both for joining us this evening. This has been Life After the Impact. Get involved, people. Get involved. See you next time.
Good night.
When I hear Oakland, I'm thinking about the Black Panther Party for self-defense. So, there's a tremendously long history of people organizing in this community and movement building in this community. There was a groundwork laid that created the space for that kind of organizing to happen. There's probably tons of leaders that were in position to organize the community. When I look at what happened in Ferguson, and even now when you look at what happened in Louisville, when we've been on the ground, the same thing happens. Tons of money dropped into a particular community.
And initially what that causes, a tremendous amount of infighting. And while that infighting is happening, you know what happens? There's a bunch of organizers in Louisville who were murdered. And people, I don't know how this happened. If you look at what happened with the Panthers and in Oakland and across the movement, there was COINTELPRO. The government infiltrated the movement and created divisiveness in the movement. And some of that was through money. Some of that was through organizations. Some of that was through agent provocateurs. They have a very sophisticated approach to dismantle us. Anytime there's a moment that happens where we do get visibility and we're able to create attention, it's a moment where we can transform the system. It's the moment when we can actually, I always say it all the time, you have to build a system to confront the system. There's no way around it.